right? What is
Very
going
cool.
on?
I always love that intro, man.
Gets you in the mood, right? You know?
It does, yeah. Even in this California heat that we still have, it's not fall at all out here. If you guys don't know, I'm from Southern California. Actually, today it dropped down to low 70s. Last week it was in the mid 80s. So for us, that's cool weather. So I'll take it.
Dude, can't complain, man. Yeah, I have a couple friends who live out there, and my friend Tyler was wearing jeans and long sleeve like winter crew neck on a hayride, and I was like, dude, the sun's out. It's no way it's that cold. You
Yeah.
fucking hipster, you know.
It was a hipster thing, I think.
With that being said, what is going on, guys? You can already tell we're flying fast and loose with this episode. We have a whole crew of people here tonight, not just your normal cast of David, myself, and honestly recurring guest Q, but we are here to talk about none other than the season finale of HBO's newest and most coveted series, Lovecraft Country, man. And I got a lot to say about this one, David. How about yourself, dude?
Same here. I actually let the cat out of the bag early this morning because I like to start them early the day of, so it's fresh in my mind. And I actually watched this episode twice because I did have some things about it too. Maybe I was like, oh, maybe I didn't get it the first time, so I rewatched it a little bit, and I had a kind of different feeling the second time. So I'm glad I did, but we'll definitely kind of go over it and unpack it because I can already guess your thoughts. Because sometimes I can tell when you're enthused about something and when you're not.
Oh, so I don't know why you'd put yourself through that is kind of what I mean, it was this.
Because it's a finale. I was trying to figure it out, you know?
Let's just put it this way. I've been more excited about the Monday nights after Lovecraft Country than the Sunday nights when it airs for about 6 to 7 weeks now. And I'm especially excited about tonight. So before we bring our guest in, because regardless of how I feel about the show, tonight is going to be an awesome show. We are so excited that all of you guys are here. We already have a few people in the chat. Shout out to Luke Reviews, who Shocktober. Yeah, man, come on. You're on like one of the panels, bro. Heads up plays here, Luke. And he only watched the show because he heard Cthulhu was in it. Well, I am sorry.
Wait, you guys I would say let's not get into that yet. We'll still talk about that because we alluded. Yeah, we alluded to it to the last episode too that we were going to kind of see if he did pop up or not. So,
but yeah, you guys who may not know, who are here on David's channel as we are co-streaming, I am Chris of Talkin TV Podcast. It's a pleasure to meet you guys. Thank you for joining us here tonight. We've been doing this series pretty much for the past 9 weeks now. I think we only missed the first week, and then since then, David and I have been teaming up to cover the show week to week with a bunch of different guests, and it's bittersweet tonight because as happy as I am that this show is finally over, I'm really gonna miss doing this on Monday nights. And so before we bring the guests in, David, for our listeners who may be new to you, why don't you tell people who you are and what it is you do here on YouTube?
Sure, of course. I'm David from Flix Talk. I do movie reviews. I actually, after this, I'm not going to do any more series reviews. I feel like I invested so much time, and we'll just kind of go over my overall thoughts, even though I liked some episodes more than others. But I think I'm going to be the TV guy. I mean, the movie guy. You be the TV guy. I'll be the movie guy, just like Dom, the movie nerd. But I'm going to stick to kind of that. I do a lot of vlogs out and about. If you guys like physical media, like DVDs, 4Ks, and all that, I do cover a lot of that on my channel, new and retro releases as well. So during the month of all of October, we've been doing a lot of horror-related things. We just started off Shocktober on your channel with Candyman a couple of weeks ago. So it was like that was really, really fun, man. And I'm just trying to keep the horror theme going at least all this month. And then I want to get a regular live schedule going on my channel. Just trying to keep, either like a Monday to Friday thing, because I do a Wednesday show with Alex from Levels of Geek on there as well. And then a Sunday wrap-up special where we go over movie news and series news with Elliot from Movie Files. So I already have a couple of live shows, and I just want to kind of shimmy a couple more in there during the week.
Let me know, man. You know, I'm always down to talk aliens and none smoking marijuana. Just hit me up, dude.
And you and I, you and I have a little podcast coming too, so that's in the works. So
I'm all about it. Now let's bring the guest in before we get too off the rails here. I can already tell we're starting to lose ourselves a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome yet again to our Lovecraft weekly series, Q of Q Reviews. What's going on, man?
What is up, man? Thank you so much for letting me be here again. You know, I'm excited to talk about Lovecraft Country again, the good, the bad, the ugly. Oh boy. Really excited to get into it tonight once again. If you don't know me, I'm Q Reviews. I just like to have fun, talk about movies or anything crazy in pop culture, Popeye chicken sandwiches to masterpiece soups, bad hood movies, bad horror movies. I'm a big fan of everything, so I just like to have fun. And we're going to have some fun tonight, talk about this Lovecraft Country. So let's get into it.
Hell yeah, dude. Q, you've been kind of a believer for this show in the
I
past
was.
few weeks that you were past tense.
Yeah, I loved it. Man, I wanted to love this show, man. I wanted to so bad. I mean, look at the cast.
Okay.
Cast was fire, man. It had monsters in it. I really love monsters, and the Lovecraft element of it. But boy, man, I guess we're gonna get into it.
We'll get into it. Fair enough. And with that being said, everyone, please welcome Professor of Film and Technology, the one, the only, Patrick W. Huber. Pat, what is going on, man?
Hey, Christian. Totally nice way to amp up my position. I really enjoy it. I teach video editing. Now I'm teaching special effects this semester. Just doing all the things I can to get people into making movies as well as watching them. Although my classes usually start off, what did you watch this weekend? And they're just like, I just did homework. So people, I guess, are doing homework this semester and not necessarily watching Lovecraft Country, which I've been talking about with my students the whole entire time. So one thing I will say, I'm glad to be here on the Shocktoberfest. And the one thing that I will say that's not shocking about October is the Jets record this season in the NFL. I see that hat there, Christian. So I'm with you. I'm crying in the inside, but too bad. I guess we'll just have to double down and watch some TV.
Amen.
At least you're not the Lions.
I don't know. Are the Lions 0-6 too?
The thing about the Lions is, I mean, I think it's at least better to be a Lions fan because you guys have hope. If you're a Jets fan, I mean, you literally just know what you're in for. 0-16, and it's not going to get better next year. And that's just
you
what
have
it is,
escapism.
man.
If you're a Jets fan, you could just watch TV and movies.
That is true, and that's what we're here to speak about. And this next guy that we're going to introduce, you guys know him. We love him. He is a wealth of knowledge. He's honestly one half of this machine that I love to call, and I'm proud to call, Talkin TV. Please welcome my good friend and your co-host of our show tonight. Not really, it's David, but you know what I mean. Dominic Rizzi, a.k.a. the movie nerd, in the house.
First of all, you insult me by saying that I would try to take over your show. This is your show first and foremost. I made that very clear when we decided to do this. Man, oh man, the only thing I had to say is, man, I wish that for our first major recap series it had been for a better show. That's all I got to say about that. You guys could do all the niceties of the world that you want, and Pat, I'm sure that you'll still be able to find some nuggets of wisdom within this steaming pile that I had to sit through these last 10 weeks, but I do not plan on being nice to the show at all. Because this was probably the only thing in the year of 2020, a year already so deprived of media that I literally made more excuses for media this year than anything else that I have. And I still felt like I wasted my time watching this show. So I'm the movie nerd, and you guys are about to see a whole totally new different side of me tonight.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Damn, dude. I mean, drop the mic, I suppose.
Yeah.
So why do you have
this mic
the,
is expensive.
Yeah, please don't do that. Well, I don't know if I can get you that discount again. I went to the music
You
store the other
can't.
day and,
You can't, and I wouldn't want you to.
Yeah, my hookup kind of dubbed me. Seems like I've tapped on that cash cow one too many times. So with that being said, don't drop the mic, but metaphorically you kind of did, Dom. So I think it'd be a good way to start this off by just going around and I want to hear from you then, Pat, because you guys are new to this series here. Like, what has been your overall experience the past 10 weeks with Lovecraft Country? Like, where's your head at coming into this week?
Pat, you absolutely need to go first.
Me? Oh man!
Yes,
thank you, Dom.
I am not going first this time.
You're calling me out. I guess
Yeah.
Maybe it's dangerous to go first, but I'm just gonna say, like, Lovecraft Country sort of caught me by storm. Like, I wasn't really paying attention to what was coming up on HBO, and boom, it just showed up in my HBO Max thing, and I started watching it. And let me tell you, that first episode was off the charts. I was excited, pumped. Great cast. Like, I was hooked 100%. Yeah, 10 episodes of greatness. Here it comes. And then I feel like episode 2, bam, pumped. Same thing. And then episode 3, which started off with Letty, getting the house, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, that's really shocking. That's a change of the story. I thought this was sort of a continuation story that was going to go on from every episode, and this is sort of like a monster of the week thing. So I was really disjointed from episode 3, but by the end of it, I got into it. And then, different stories happened from the different episodes. And I feel like my kind of relationship with the whole season was, does it want to tell one overarching story, or is it telling 10 separate stories? Or, and I didn't know which one it wanted to be, to the point where I was like, man, this was based on a book. I saw it in the credits, and I read pretty much the whole entire book since this series started, because I needed to find out what the hell was going on with the storytelling here. And if for those that don't know about the book, I recommend it. Go out, read it. It's a pretty good 370-page read, but it's basically just a bunch of short stories using the same characters, and it jumps from different situations, and it deals with our topic of racism in America, and it has like the horror and the sci-fi, and it's really spot on. I think the book is relatively perfect, but then when it translates into TV, I don't think they knew exactly what they wanted to do. Did they want to make a perfect sort of adaptation of the book, which I think they threw that out the door. I think they took all the best elements, and then they combined it with their message, what they wanted to tell in 2020, and kind of made their own thing. And I think in that process of making that new sausage, the story, which is sort of the foundation of it, really kind of got muddy and sort of I didn't know what to do with it. Acting is fantastic. Production value is fantastic. Individual stories within each episode, fantastic. But overall, it just, what happened, the episode that took place in Korea, that's the moment in which I was just totally shut down, and I was like, how does this relate to any of the themes that have been brought up before? It's cool, sci-fi, horror, banshee stuff, but for the most part, I just didn't really know how to digest it, and I kind of felt like I was playing catch up for the rest of the season. This finale, first time that pretty much from scene 2, I was on my phone for the whole episode. And going off of what David said, I wish I had time to go back and watch it again, because I would have tried my best to be focused and maybe pick up on some of the things. But it just, whatever, I'm sorry to say this, but my fantasy football team was more important than the final episode of Lovecraft Country. I'm in a tight week this week, so that's probably why. So my attention span just, it took me out of it, and I don't know what to say beyond that. I'll pass the torch, because maybe I'm wrong, but that's my initial gut reaction.
Yeah, no, man. JB is just glad it wasn't a love sausage. And with that being said, we're going to toss it to Dom. Before we really get in and break down this finale, Dom, where's your head been at the entire
How do I
season?
follow that up? I love how this man is like, it might be.
Dom, I know you
Dangerous
could
to go
talk
first.
longer, but let's try and keep it a little quicker so we can get into the actual episode.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. So I'm the one who gets the short end of the stick.
Well,
I see
blame
how
Pat.
it is.
Blame Pat.
I see how it is. But look, all I'm going to say is that I think it's safe to say, for anyone who knows me, knows how big a fan I am of HBO. I've watched most of their itinerary, and I'm in the process of getting through them. I have a few more of one season of Deadwood left. I still have to watch 6 Feet Under and Oz, finish those 2. But for the most part, if something coming out that HBO is happening, wow, Chris, I see what you did there. If HBO has something coming out, then I'm looking forward to it. And so when I heard that this show was coming out, and I'm like, okay, we got Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams both producing a show, and it's going to have monsters, and it's going to be another allegory for racism in America. Cool, let's go. I saw the cast. I'm like, Jonathan Majors, Courtney B. Vance, Journey Smollett, Anjanae Ellis, fucking the list went on. I'm like, oh my God, let's go. This is going to be amazing. And exactly like what Pat said, first episode, I'm like, let's fucking go. I'm in. Second episode, a little bit derivative, but I was still like, okay, that was awesome. Then by episode 3, I was like, okay, this is entertaining, but I don't really know what's happening, and this is starting to lose me. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse each week. And then by the time I got to the finale, I'm like, okay, so this is going to be another Rise of Skywalker situation. Great, where I'm just bored, and I just want this to be over. And I should never feel that way after I finish watching a TV show, ever. Ever, ever, ever. So, yeah, those are my initial thoughts. I'll break down specifically why I felt that way as we get into the conversation. Boom. Happy Chris. That was like under 2 minutes, I think.
That was a good break.
I'm so sorry you felt like you watched Rise of Skywalker again. No one should ever have to feel that way more than one life.
We'll get into that.
That's terrible. Damn, man. So, I mean, David, dude, how do you want to approach this as we begin to tackle the finale here?
I mean, we could just kind of go over how it all started off, but I want to, say big kudos to these guys for giving a good, solid review, because even though I didn't really, especially, Patrick kind of breaking it down since he is a newcomer to the group, of just kind of my thoughts were with him, especially in the final episode. I was watching at 6 a.m. this morning while I was having my coffee right before work, and 10, 15 minutes in, I was zoning out. I was on my phone. I have a really low attention span as well. So that's the reason why I wanted to kind of try to piece it together, with the flashbacks with Letty, and not flashbacks, but like we'll get into it. But there's like some things with like time travel type of things going on. I had to really kind of digest that once again to see what they did. But I mean, we could just initially start off because we had kind of talked about how at first this seemed like it pieced together, and then it started turning into an anthology. And then the last 3 episodes kind of pieced together again. So it's like, what the hell are they doing here? It's really weird, especially like how you said, Patrick, with the episode where she gets a house, because then we kind of jump forward like months ahead. They reference that George died, but what happened with that time gap? Like there's, it's just time went by, and then another situation with Ghost happened. So it was just like a monster of the week, like you said. And that's what kind of upset me the most overall, is that it didn't have a really cohesive storyline. I mean, you had the same characters, but you had just kind of jumping around things going on. And I understand each one was directed by different people and stuff, but it got a little jumbled for me. And the finale was not what I was expecting or hoping for, and I was really let down. So,
and to hear you say that is crazy, because like you've been one of the biggest believers that I've known of the show throughout its entirety.
Yeah, because even though I didn't like how it ended, I liked most of the episodes overall. And I try to just kind of put my mind in, okay, I'm going into this one episode, not tying it into the previous episode. And I think that's going back to what you said, Patrick, about the production value, the acting. I think that overpowered kind of, I guess, the storyline, just holding things together for me. And I really shouldn't have, because the way this ended off, I was like, I felt completely like they gave me like a leg sweep, and I'm just on my ass now of like, I don't really know how to feel about this.
Yeah, I'm right there with Pat. I do have a tough fantasy matchup as well this week, and I'm not going to lie to you when I say that I really was on my phone more than I was watching this finale, and it sucks because, honestly, we all gave at least 10 hours of our lives to this show, but I think I probably gave 12 with how many times I had to rewind because I got sucked into a text message or in a notification on my phone, or like, my Wait and Play roller coaster tycoon app just I can actually go in and build more, rides in my city. I waited the 6 hours, and just things kept sucking me away from this show. And it's kind of upsetting because I'm with all of you guys so far who said those first 2 episodes, dynamite, completely sucked in, was just waiting for next Sunday. And then it was like, oh, I guess I'll watch the Sunday night game. I'll watch this next morning. Oh, I guess maybe we'll do it Tuesday. I lost power, but honestly, I don't want to have to spend the extra hour to binge the show anyways. It just became a slog, more of a chore than it did enjoyment as we got
there was
down
no
the wire
excitement.
here.
There was no excitement in this episode whatsoever. We had literally every cast member in this, and Gi was one of my more anticipated characters. I know you say you didn't really care for the Korean episode, Pat, but that was kind of a character that I was it was more of a mystery. We had talked about like, who is she? And then they finally developed that she had this, foxtail curse and whatnot. So I was like, cool. Then when she finally came to America, she was barely even utilized. Like she was just like at the table and they're like, don't ever come here again. And then she just took off. And then it was like,
wait, hold on, David. So you mean to tell me that a J.J. Abrams production set up an awesome mystery, and then it had a fucking lame ass payoff.
I
That
don't
never
follow.
happened.
I don't follow Lost. Okay,
That
you
never,
have to.
no,
I've
that's
only
not a
said-
Lost thing.
I've
That's
only
a
said that.
frequent J.J. Abrams thing. That just happened as recently as Rise of Skywalker.
I don't watch those movies either. I don't watch those movies. I mean, 10 Cloverfield
Yeah.
Lane, I watched that. I mean, Cloverfield, I've watched stuff like that, but I'm not, a Star Wars guy. You guys know that. Come on.
Well, David, one thing I've learned about David is he's done a good job of avoiding letdowns, at least when it comes to watching things.
That's smart.
Unlike
I
myself,
had that
who,
gift.
keeps falling for the mystery box, if you will. But Q, man, what's your reaction to everything everyone's been saying right now, dude? I'd love to get your take on all this craziness we're spitting.
Yeah, no, actually, I kind of agree with a lot of points everybody is saying. I was a strong believer. Jordan Peele, J.J. Abrams, of course, dog. I'm there. Monsters, like you said, Jonathan Majors, and then like that first episode, Sundown Town, man, it blew me away. I was telling everybody, yo, you gotta watch Lovecraft. You gotta watch Lovecraft. The first episode was fire, and then the second episode, I don't know, because I was confused because there was wizards and there was cow monster babies, and there was no explanation at all. And then this whole society died in the second episode, and then we go to some ghosts in episode 3. So I call this show bird shit because it's everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And I'm cool. I'm cool with the monster of the week. I'm cool. Give me different monsters every week. I'm totally cool with that. But then they tried to tie it together. Like Pat said, you gotta pick one, or you know what I'm saying, or figure out a clever way to make it all coincide together. And I was highly excited about this, and I think the production value, that transformation when the sister turned into the White Lady and she had that metamorphosis in the alley, I thought that was some of the greatest special effects I've seen from a transformation coming from a guy who used to do practical horror makeup and does CG for a living. That was pretty damn good HBO quality, you know what I'm saying? But when it got to the Bootsy Collins Space Woman and they were on there with the Meteor Man planet, I was like, yo, what is going on? And the Jigaboo monsters, wasn't scary. She said
Jigabobo.
Jigabobo.
You got to be correct
so
on that one. You're going to get him kicked off YouTube for saying that.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I thought that was called Jigabobo. It was still, kind of weird, though. You know what I'm saying?
Strike, David.
Yeah. Still, I didn't mean to get you a channel strike, though, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it. And I was definitely let down by the season finale. It was just, I didn't know what to expect this week. Like, where are we gonna go? Are we gonna get a strong episode? Like maybe, some of the previous ones here and there. Maybe you can end this off strong since you started off strong. But I felt that it's ended off very, very weak. And that, of course, that damn music that they just throw in off the beat, cause some weird hip hop whack song. That was the wackest hip hop song ever. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, that was anything. I literally thought to myself, it's like, when churches try to make like Jesus rap to get the youth involved, it was like a step above that. Not much better.
Right.
Like, I understood why they were throwing in the rap music at first. I was like, okay, this is completely unnecessary, but whatever. They're trying to make it a modern day. But that literally just got torturous by the end of it. I'm like, okay, we get it.
Yeah.
Like,
and it
come on.
a long time too.
Yes.
Like, what is this whack Jesus
those songs played longer.
Terrible.
Those songs played longer than the fucking songs in Luke Cage, and those songs were actually good.
Dude.
RZA's fire. Shout out to RZA.
What's up, Voltrix? Now, I got to ask you guys, before we dive into like specifics on this episode, because this show hasn't gotten confirmed for season 2. I just looked it up. Do you think that's the reception? I mean, the numbers were there for this show. People were watching this show. I don't know how necessarily well they liked it. I know YouTube was kind of a mixed bag. I don't really care for the print media too much when it comes to my reviews, because I feel like anything attached to a mainstream outlet is just bought and paid for these days, so I could care less. But I mean, where are you guys' heads at in regards to, like, maybe this isn't the writing style season 2 for this show, but by all means it was a hit by monetary and number standards?
I mean, I just don't know where they go from here, because literally the way that this ended, it's funny because literally, weirdly enough, and Chris, you know how much I've compared these two shows. The show was in the exact same position that Watchmen was in last year, except Watchmen at the very least was open-ended enough that, like, regardless of whether they wanted to do future seasons or not, they at least had the opening. The way this ended, it's like, look, unless you're pulling like a major fast one, like, sorry, a little bit of early spoilers, but your main character's dead. Like, where do you go? Where do you go from here? I'm legitimately confused. Like, I'm like, okay, if they were to do a second season, I mean, I have to assume they would either have to do an anthology or like kind of soft reboot the show. And like, I mean, that's just my response. It's the shortest response. I'm like, I legitimately don't know where they go from here. So I think that's part of the reason why they haven't renewed it immediately just yet.
Anthology makes sense, although I haven't been too impressed with what I saw in this first season. But of course, anthology just gives them a whole forgiveness to just, you know, recreate and try and redeem themselves. But I mean, I don't know, David, like, where's your head at with all that?
To that question, I'm really gonna say that I think they're waiting to hear how the cast feels about doing a second season. You have to realize too, these are actual actors that do movies. They're not just like fresh faces. So I think based on schedules with Journey or Jonathan Majors, they're going to be, you know, they're going to say, you know, do you guys want to come back? Obviously, you're going to have to renegotiate another contract, which if the numbers were there, I haven't looked it up. They're going to have to offer them more money, right? Plus with HBO Max booming right now, just, you know, they want to get as many subscribers as possible watching a successful show. Now, if they don't agree to that, HBO is going to say, okay, season 1 was a limited series. That's it. And they're just going to pull it. They're going to pull that thing. It's like the same thing rappers do when they come out with a project and it doesn't do well. What do? They call it a mixtape. That's Q knows exactly what I'm talking about. They don't say, oh, that wasn't the album, guys. That was just a pre-mixtape. Don't worry about it. So I think they're going to label this a limited run if they don't, you know, and they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure if they want to get a whole new cast for this and then start a whole separate story for Lovecraft Country. Which I don't want to see another one. I was fine with the stories of this, and we didn't get to see one of the major monsters of H.P. Lovecraft, and that's like another missed opportunity, as well as we'll get into it. But Yahima, the article that you sent me, Jesus Christ, they butchered that storyline.
Yeah, let me pull that up while we keep going.
God,
so while I pull that up,
familiarize me with that.
Jumping point to get in specifics, but Pat or Q, do you guys have any take on this whole? Will we get a season 2? Will it be a continuation? Will it be an anthology style? What do you guys think about that? Jump in freely, by the way.
Well, I read the book, so I don't think I'm waiting for a season 2.
What was your book experience like, man?
Well, I will say that, to answer the season 2 question, I think Misha Green did a good job in terms of, taking the book and adapting it into a TV series. My hypothesis is took a lot of liberties, made it their own thing, and I think that's sort of where things sort of ventured off into its into the story problems. What I would totally say is I want to see more Misha Green things. So I'm not opposed to either, keeping the Lovecraft Country branding and then just sort of doing totally different characters, and do like the Monster of the Week anthology a little more, or just sort of give her a new show and make it more of the anthology straight up, call it something different. So I think Lovecraft Country in itself as a series, if I was sort of the executive in the suit, I wouldn't basically greenlight it based on content. I would greenlight it based on the numbers. So if the numbers, like David said, were really good, I would probably just say, hey, go ahead, have a second season, do the best you can, bring back the characters that people love. But, when it comes down to content, it's like there's creating content and then there's creating a passionate TV show that's fantastic. And I don't think that's what they have. So they would have to have a lot of retooling to make me a believer again, which is possible. Anything's possible, but I think it's really an uphill battle to make this into something fantastic. I think it's cut your losses, learn from your experience and make something great. And the book, I would say, I think it dealt with basically, society a little more, dealt with sort of, the white community versus the black community and just sort of like gave them different tool sets of how they survive in the world during this period of time. It's definitely leans towards historical fiction, and it has a commentary about modern day. And I think, that's very important, to basically have that, out there and have people reading it and get that message out. But I also think the TV series sort of took more of a more aggressive political stance than what the book offers. And I think that's also where it sort of goes wrong. And so I would recommend the book because I think it's just a little bit better in how it handles the topic. Specifically in our like polarized society, this is definitely seen through the lens of one lens instead of sort of a more pragmatic approach, academic approach. So I don't know, that's where my thoughts are. Q, Christian also threw it to both of us. So what do you think?
Yeah, season 2 is going to be really hard to get Jonathan Majors for season 2 if it was greenlit, because he's ultra busy with projects. Of course, he got cast right now for the Ant-Man 3 main villain, and he got a slew of projects because he's like a hot commodity in Hollywood right now, because I think he's a fantastic actor. Really hated seeing him cry every damn week of Lovecraft Country. Like, damn, he's just always crying, So, yeah, like he's like the worst like boyfriend. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had a side chick in Japan that just came over to the house, sat down on the ground,
Korea.
just not Korea. yeah, I gotta get. I'm all over the place, messed up with all my things. But yeah, then he got his girlfriend pregnant. He don't have a job. Like this is the this is the worst dude ever.
Have a job.
Yeah, he don't have a job. He's reading these books. He's not taking
That's
care of
the
the
best
house.
thing about the show I've heard yet.
Yeah, he was.
Job.
Yeah, he wasn't the best boyfriend.
Oh,
I'm
my
just saying.
God.
Yeah. But yeah, as for season 2, I don't know, man. I think Misha Green just like Pat said, she took some liberties that were maybe didn't work for the show, almost a little too literally woke for some of like some of these episodes, like especially the space one where she was like the Bootsy Collins lady out of space. I just really hated that episode, and I know what you were trying to do. Like, I get it, but it's not working at all. It's different ways of storytelling that she could do, and I think she got the talent, and I don't, it's going to take a lot to retool the show to get it back on, solid footing. It's got to have some type of narrative basis that like will keep me interested coming every week, because like everybody else in this panel, I think we lost interest almost episode to episode. You're just hoping like this next episode, this might be the one like Sundown Town, and sometimes it meets my expectations almost there, but most of the episodes, I'm sorry to say, just let me completely down. But if it's a season 2 and if still got the same producer, the same production value, I might give it a watch. I might give it a second chance, to be honest. I'll watch it, but it's not excited, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I would watch it, season 2, but I might tune out. Like, I wouldn't deal with it for 10 episodes again if it suffered similar problems. And I feel like that's a good segue into this article that I got to give credit where credit's due, right? Dom sent this article my way, and it absolutely blew my mind, because this is something that David and I have been talking about for a while. And
because you never reacted to me when I sent you that.
I was saving it.
Yeah.
I'm
This is
like,
a great
wow.
find,
It's
comes
bad when
from,
your show's
God.
own creator admits that she fucked up.
Yeah, it comes from IndieWire. Lovecraft's showrunner Misha Green admits she failed the indigenous character storyline, and we all know that that's the character they were referencing. And just like so many mysteries on the show that I wanted to hear answers from, I wanted to know what happened when Dinah and her mother showed up in that second Sundown Town, and then the next episode it's gone. I wanted to know what the whole deal with the cult of wizards was at the end of episode 2. Sure, we got a little bit of that in the finale, but we still have so many questions about them. I mean, I want to know why. Still, I say this every week, why a cow gave birth to a baby, whatever you want to call it. And so, just like all those questions,
Why?
seems there's got to be more than one failure. She's taking responsibility for what she believes to be one of the biggest failures of Lovecraft Country so far. Storyline of the indigenous two-spirit character, Yahima.
Did she explain why, though? I just saw her apologizing, but why? What is the reasoning?
Probably not.
I didn't read the
Hold on,
reasoning.
wait, Chris, go up a little bit more. I want to see that second paragraph.
Why
I
did
wanted to
Montrose
show
kill
the
her? It
uncomfortable
made no
truth that
sense.
oppressed folks can also be oppressors, but I didn't examine or unpack the moment / portrayal as thoroughly as I should have. It's a story point worth making, but I failed the way I chose to make it. So she's not trying to circle around that at all. She's straight up using like those very specific word choices right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, she's owning up to it, and she's a very green showrunner for all, you know, intents and purposes. This was her first real step up to the big leagues. I mean, she's like we say every week, she's done a few indies, but this really was her first chance. And so that's why you can't fault her too much, and that's why I would dive in and check out a second season, but I'd be super hesitant because, I mean, she's quite literally admitting that the things we've been complaining about, well, we actually were right to complain about them.
I feel like if they had a second season, they still wouldn't tackle the Yahima issue. Like they wouldn't even touch it.
Guarantee they wouldn't.
You know, like I understand, you know, the oppressors, you know, killing the, you know, it was Montrose that killed her. But once again, what was his? And he was still a mystery at the time. I felt like we got way more explanation and time with him, like almost his full episode, you know, as a solo character. And I would have liked to see Yahima's backstory a little more. Like I understand she was conquered by Titus and whatnot too, but like instead of just hearing that story, I'd rather have seen that story in an episode form, like how they did with Korea. So,
yeah, they kind of used Montrose as like a plot device a lot of times, and meanwhile he got away with a lot of shit. And then it was like, oh, what are we gonna do about it? Literally nothing. Okay,
I
and
really
it was just
didn't
like
care for
more
him
of
Yeah,
Atticus
me
just
neither.
yelling at him and being like, oh man, I had to deal with your abuse my whole life. And then it literally does nothing, and then they just continue to go on adventures. I'm like, okay, what are the point? What is the point of any of these scenes? Like, none of this makes any difference. I've literally seen the same argument like 5 episodes in a row. What is happening here? And then it's just like, oh, crazy sci-fi adventure time. Oh, what's it called? Racist moment right here. And I'm like, okay, not only is this getting predictable, but it's just bad storytelling, and like none of this shit is adding up. None of this is making sense. Like it's you know what the problem is? It's for so long. It like specifically in the middle of the show, it just has no interest in any cohesiveness. It's like, oh, our house is haunted by ghosts. Oh, okay. Oh, we're gonna go on a treasure hunt. Oh, Ruby's in love with William, who's somehow still alive, but it's actually Christina. Oh, okay. Oh, now we're going with taking Korea. We're getting that flashback. I'm like, cool. And then next thing you know, we're following Hippolyta as she gets transported to an alien. I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. And then by episode 8, that's when they finally start to bring stuff around. And by that point, it's like, okay, so you've just been telling us like exactly what Christina, who weirdly enough, and bear with me for a second, might be the most interesting character because she's kind of the only character with like any like mystery left in her, for lack of a better word. And she weirdly enough seems to be like morally gray because the whole thing is that she's not actually doing anything to outwardly like affect them other than the fact that just like manipulating Ruby. And obviously she wants Atticus for her spell, but like she gave them a chance to walk. She just wanted Titus's book and then she would have left them alone. And of all the characters who I didn't believe would actually do that, I firmly believe that she would actually leave them alone if they just gave her the book of names.
I still think she still needed a blood sacrifice though, or some kind of.
Yeah, but I think the book would have been her way of finding another one.
Yeah, she said that she could have found elsewhere.
She said that she could have found another one.
Could have. I mean, you could. There was so many possibilities out there. I think the blood thing was the quickest way, and she didn't have time to fuck around. I mean, she was like. Plus, I do agree though, Christina
and fucking Ruby. So.
Well, yeah, and see, that's another thing too. Is she was great at really not showing too much emotion on her actual face, which led to like this character, you know, oh, is she going to turn on him? Is she not? And, you know, eventually she did. She was just using him for her gain. But I thought they did I liked her character for what it was because it was more of a stone-faced. She just seemed out for her objective, you know, and everybody else was kind of on their own thing. And she was on the warpath of, I want to become the immortal one, you know?
And then after that, it's like, okay, we're going to time travel to Tulsa. And I'm like, of course, because Watchmen did that. And this is the latest thing that you're going to rip off from Watchmen, like so many other storytelling devices I've seen throughout this show. Literally, it was so bad because I'm like, guys, it's like Amazon was reading my mind when I watched it because literally the first thing that I noticed before that episode started playing, because I watched episode 9 late. I missed it that week. I don't remember what I think I just didn't feel like watching because I'm like, okay, I need a break from this show. I'll just catch up with it the day of that I watched the finale. And literally, as soon as I put that episode on, it was like, this episode has scenes that take place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921, which was also in Watchmen. I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. I'm like, Amazon literally knows what I'm thinking. Come on. And then
Watchmen did it better.
Yeah, Watchmen did it better. How sad is that?
You know, here's the thing. I feel like this show had a super strong opening when you didn't know its tricks, and I honestly think it did say some pretty important and interesting things about like the social commentary, you know, going back and forth between 1950s and today, and how in some cases it's very eerily similar. But I think it quickly ran out of those tricks. You know, Pat, you had said something a few times when we've hung out, and this isn't just from one day. Like over the past 10 weeks, we've hung out a few times, and you've kind of said a similar tune, and it stuck with me. You were like, I'm going to read this book, because at the time you hadn't read the book, and you were like, I really feel that by the end, when I get to the end of the book, they'll have shown their hand in the first 2 to 3 episodes. Or ran out of subject material from the book in the first 2 to 3 episodes. I mean, do you still feel that way?
Well, after reading the book, essentially, like the first chapter is the first 2 episodes, and like, you know, I can actually bring up the listing here. So first 2 episodes is one story. The sort of Holy Ghost is another story. The history of violence in the museum is actually a different story. So they go from story to story to story. It's a monster of the week type of book. The whole Ruby episode where she becomes a white woman, that's a complete different chapter. The same thing with Hippolyta going into the time or the space machine. That's a completely different episode. Now, there's a weird thing, because one of the things that's pretty interesting about the book is that some of the characters that were male, it's a predominantly male-oriented book, but they were changed into female characters for the show. So it's not Christina Braithwaite, it's Caleb, and it's a male character. And then also, you know, Deanna, the Hippolyta's daughter, is Horace, and a male character as well. You know, so in terms of like, there's minor changes, which are fine. I think they worked for the TV show. But like the Jigabobo was basically, you know, it's basically dolls and not necessarily just, you know, creepy things from us coming to chase them down. You know,
I wasn't the only one to pick up on that.
Very nice.
You know, it's basically almost all the episodes. Well, I haven't, you know, I have like 40 pages left. So, but I don't think the Korean episode had anything to do with the book. I think that's one that they created on their own. But for the most part, it's like, you know, I originally thought that the first 2 episodes comprised the entire book. And then the rest of the series was going to be made up by the showrunner and the writing team. But it turns out that the source material does cover the majority of the season. But I think everything is sort of more tied into the social issues. You know, the museum piece has this really fantastic, you know, short story quality to it. You know, basically George and Montrose have been keeping this book, this ledger that their ancestors sort of wrote up, and it's basically all the money that's owed to the family from the former slave owner, and they've calculated interest on every single Thanksgiving, you know, every year. And essentially what happens is Braithwaite steals this book from them and says, I want you to get these magic pages from the art museum, and I'll give you this book back. And it's a family sentimental value. And I think, you know, this is something that, you know, me being white male would not necessarily think of. And I'm here reading this book of, you know, of course that's sentimental. Of course that's valuable to the family. Of course that's a main thing. And so that story is enriched just by the fact that you have this history backed into the story. And I feel like chapter after chapter after chapter is giving me insight into history. History that I don't necessarily tap into on a daily basis. And that's why I think the book is really strong, I don't necessarily think that the show taps into that as well. I think there's more of a little bit of like the anger, the public anger, specifically in the Ruby episode. You have someone, Ruby assaulting a guy with a stiletto. That's not necessarily tied into historical, past. It's really a symptom of, our society. It's anger, and it's coming to the surface. And, I think it's okay to see that in our media, but at the same time, I think it strikes a different tone, from what the book actually set forth. So I'm sort of waffling between the two, where it's like, I enjoyed reading the book a lot, and I enjoyed the show too, to a certain point. But there was just constantly things taking me out. And after reading the book, I felt like there's so much more value in the book that could have been brought to the screen that was left on the table. So, I definitely, again, read the book.
I like what you said.
That's usually Pat's go-to, read the book.
Yeah. I like what you said about it being more. I wish it was more about the social issues too. I mean, we don't need to see like hidden figures. I mean, they can mix it. I just wish they focus more on that aspect. And you talk about the family narrative. That's the one thing that I missed in there. I know they were trying with the grandmother in the book, but I didn't really feel this strong sense of family. I did like when they were in the car this episode and they were singing a song or whatever. Everybody was lightening it up a little bit. It was cute. But yeah, I just didn't feel that strong black narrative that they had to, they'll give anything to make it through these consequences. I just didn't feel that, coming from, African American home with strong family values. It was too all over the place. I keep saying that again, but it just felt very disjointed.
So at what point did it start to lose you? Because you and David kind of were on board with this a little longer than I have been, kind of being two of the more serious regulars here on this series that we've been concluding tonight on the channel.
I will say for me, going off of last week's episode, we had talked about how I actually did like finally the explanation. We got to see, I mean, he always talked about it. Montrose was talking about his dad used to whoop his ass, and we got to actually physically see that. We saw that he was, assaulted by these thugs that came for shot his friend. There was a lot of things that led up to being the person that he was, and he didn't want Atticus to be soft. So you had a lot of character dynamic there, a lot of emotional scene in that alleyway. So I did like that a lot. This explanation too of time travel just happens just because Hippolyta just all of a sudden knows how to do this time travel shit was not explained well to me, and I didn't like that. I don't know if they explained that in the book at all, like how they're able to achieve this. Maybe they don't go into it, but it was not. Even in layman's terms, it was not broken down for me at all. Like for someone that, like, I could understand it, but. And then the woman burning in the last episode, her burning while she was giving the book. So that was a little more emotional, and the character development was better in that episode than this one. And this was supposed to be like a direct tie-in because we saw kind of from the start of this episode, the season finale, is that they were trying to get that curse off of Diana. And that's where we kind of got sucked back into going back into the 20s, I believe it was, in the 1920s, right?
Yeah, that's when.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then this is kind of where we kind of figure out that Atticus is gonna die, like whether we want to or not. I know we talked about it, Chris, last week of maybe something else was gonna happen, but it played out exactly the way Gia predicted, and it was like, okay, well, there was no twist there, none at all, because we already kind of knew it happening, and they let it be known, Letitia, that the son needed to be born to kind of write the story, right? That's what it always had to be her, which, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, didn't she get that vulnerability spell taken off, and then all of a sudden it appeared again? How did that get placed back on her when she fell out the window?
Never explained. Apparently she just, you know what? Actually, I may have missed this, but isn't that why they were in the church? Like Atticus learned in order to give her the spell. I mean, that might just be me totally missing. Like I said, I was zoned out and I was trying to write during this, which was a mistake because I couldn't focus on either very well. But
I don't remember that putting back on,
like, at all. But
you guys, the cow. The
What's
cow
that?
from episode 2 that gave the monster baby put the spell back on Letty. That's what
I
happened.
think there was a shot of Ruby, so it was like a spiritual
Yeah,
thing.
but that
I don't know.
wasn't
Again,
I was about to say
fantasy
that wasn't
football
Ruby
versus watching the finale.
because funnily
Right,
enough,
right.
that totally went the way that everyone expected when Ruby dumbass finally got killed by Christina. Where it's like, wow, didn't see that one coming at all.
But
Like,
also,
that
let's
was
talk
totally
about
not gonna happen.
how
But-
Ruby being killed off was in a line of dialogue and didn't
Right,
happen on the screen.
right,
Oh, that was
right.
That was whack, and I was gonna say for all the
Like, what?
things that they could have shown, not told, you know, and it's like just like the
You're right.
exposition train was running full steam throughout the entirety of the series when we actually got reveals, and they never showed anything actually good. It's like the few things they answered they didn't even show us. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yo,
And
I
that
seen
was
better
very
reveals than
very
Scooby
frustrating.
Doo. Scooby Doo, yo, seriously.
Which is funny
You
because
know?
they ripped off Scooby Doo multiple times in this show, so that's kind of hilarious that this show tried and failed to rip off Scooby Doo. But now you guys pretty much just eliminated like a lot of my points that, and basically my number one problem, which is that in trying to emulate a lot of the anger that is currently being felt by the public, given all of the social issues, I think that. And again, this I owe largely to Misha Green's amateurism because, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is the first thing that she's ever done. Like, I still don't know
It is.
how these like new guys
For
get
the most
like.
part, yeah.
I understand like a low budget movie, I get that, but like a full on HBO show and you're just showrunner there, like something's a little off. But
It's
my whole
shown.
thing is that. So this show is obviously trying to make a statement about racism in America. Cool. Again, seen it before, but as long as it's presented in a new ideal light, and especially now when these types of stories are really necessary to tell, then cool. But it's almost like she's letting the anger of the modern day steer her, and to the point where it takes away from the storytelling, and it creates these really, really weird tonal shifts where it's like, again, with the transition from like the more classical score to the modern day rap, and to these like moments of weird anger and like what's it called, like standing up to the man, followed by like just moments of just like them like being all emotional and sad, and then and then like it's trying to incorporate so many different elements at once. But the showrunner clearly like is not interested at all in actually focusing on anything like thematically relevant in the show, because it's almost Walking Dead-esque in how much the show was trolling us after a certain point, because it's like setting up one cool thing. Okay, how are we going to explore this? Nope, tossed out the window. Okay, introduce the next cool thing. Cool, what's that about? Nope, not interested. Out the window. And after a while, it's just like, again, it's the same problem that I have with like most of the shows now. It's like, why am I going to get excited if it's just going to get canceled? And like, we're not going to spend any time exploring any of these cool ideas. You know, it's like they put this in perspective. They mentioned the Book of Names at least 30 times throughout this entire show, and I had to be reminded every single time I heard it. I'm like, okay, what is the Book of Names?
Right.
What amount of importance does this actually have towards the plot? Like, is this going to matter amount? And big surprise, it like was just a MacGuffin. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And we haven't even actually gotten to the final episode and all the
Nah, we will.
stupidity that happens there.
Yeah, I guess we can. I suppose we could start moving towards it. But before we do that, I
Yeah.
have like just one more thing to add on to kind of what you said. I do think Misha Green though did a good job. Like David and I, who pretty much from the start of this series, you know, he's been there every episode with me, and we even eventually went on to start co-hosting it and whatnot. There was a lot of history that like we didn't learn in school, similar to our conversation earlier about Trials of the Chicago 7. So
Oh yeah.
you can't hate on that part, because like there's so many names and so many incidences and events that I would have never have known of. For example, the the Black Wall Street massacre that they did in Watchmen. I had no idea that there was multiple of those. They chose to highlight the Tulsa one in this. I actually went and looked up and learned a little bit about history and did some reading on it. I got that from last week. You know, I would have never have known that had it not been for this show. But I do agree with you in the sense that I feel like I think I can hear where you're saying it did feel a little emotionally driven at some points in time. And so we kind of lost sight of like, I felt the really powerful statements that were being made and leaving me thinking and, you know, reevaluating and reading in between episodes the first few weeks, you know. And I think we kind of got back to it a little bit in last week's episode with the whole Tulsa incident. But then the whole middle the whole middle of the show just sort of fell apart. But you know, so I can't fault her too much because I mean, I feel like just to go up to the big leagues on a show like this with the social implications that it has and the big names attached to it, that's no, you know, that's a tall order right there. I wouldn't want to fill those shoes my first time at bat, but yeah, you know, so I think that's like there's two sides to this coin. Unfortunately,
Sundown, the Sundown stuff was great. I just want to add like the Sundown town stuff. I thought that was done.
Yeah, that really stuff was all good. Like all the stuff that they introduced. Yeah, sorry. Like all the stuff that they introduced in like the first couple episodes with like the setting up the world and explained like it's funny because at least for those first couple episodes they were adding in like a lot of stuff that I'd seen in other movies that were like, oh, okay, so this is, like I said, I'm like, yeah, it's interesting because like I'm one of those people where like, okay, every time I feel like I've learned everything there is to know about racism in America, these new properties come out and inform me about all these different like micro subtleties that went. And like I knew about Jim Crow, but like, okay, now these are breaking down the specifics of how Jim Crow just affected everyone. I'm like, okay, that's actually really interesting and fascinating to learn. Like as much as I hated, well, not hated, as much as I was not a fan of the movie Green Book, at the very least, I learned, okay, so that's what a Green Book was. It basically was basically a guide for towns that African Americans could stop off in, or in towns that they knew to avoid. And then this show introduced the concept of the sundown town. And I was like, cool. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. And I thought they did a very good job of setting up just how scary that was. And again, since the first episode seems to be the only one that was actually capable of maintaining a consistent tone, I thought it did surprising enough, it did a really good job of like bouncing around from like the threat of the very racist white police officers to the threat of the monsters and how that kind of like forced me like that. The amount of like tonal jumps that happened in that one scene was actually like surprisingly well done, despite how jarring it was. And it's just they just couldn't carry it for the rest of the show.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, no. So before we jump into the finale, does anyone have anything else to add to that sentiment, or do we just want to jump in and start picking away at this finale, guys?
I'll add one last thing is whatever Misha Green ends up doing, pretty much if she does another season of this show, or if she doesn't, show runs another show, I'm probably going to be on board for that. Even though I don't want to see a season 2 of Lovecraft Country, I think I can back the talent that she has creatively. I might not agree with every decision that she's making, but it did spur me to read a book I probably never would have read on my own. And it goes to your point, Christian, that I'm just digging deeper into it and reading between the lines and just picking up some knowledge for myself. And I think yes, we're looking for entertainment and we're looking for that solid story, which we all can agree on. We didn't quite get here from start to finish, but ultimately you also want something else of value to come out of it. And I think just having an experience with the show was enough for me. So maybe not the best show in terms of storytelling, but you could still get stuff out of it. And I think to be a filmmaker or just someone in the creative field to be able to do that, that takes some skill. And so I would applaud her for sure, and be willing to jump into whatever future projects that she's involved in.
She'll probably end up directing a DC movie next. Watch it happen. It happens with every single one of these new creators. Watch it happen.
So you're saying the finale was basically her audition tape for a DC movie? Wouldn't
surprise me one bit.
Fair enough.
Gotham City Sirens, directed by Misha Green. Only Black Canary's the lead character now.
We shall see. We shall see. Now, with that being said, David, man, I'm going to hand this one over to you. How do you want to bring us into the finale here? Really
I went over a couple of the points, like the introduction of it tied off from exactly the last episode where Diana's stuck in this character. I don't know do we still know what these girls are called? Because remember, people in the chat were saying that they were called something. They were from a book, I guess. These characters were from a very racist book that they actually
Uncle Tom's
showed.
Cabin. I don't know what the creatures are called, but
I think I said it earlier, but I was wrong or something, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not gonna say it again.
No. Bobo was the name of Emmett Till, the nickname of Emmett Till in the episode.
Oh, yeah.
But the girl, anyways, the little girl herself. But so I thought it was cool that if they were going to include that, That's fine that they kind of all came together. Once again, this is a whole family dynamic episode. They even called Gia a family member at one point in the episode, and I was like, you had sex with her for the first time. That's your family member now? But, whatever. They're all family now. So they're all kind of doing these spells and stuff like that, which I felt this seemed extremely rushed. Was I the only one that felt like this episode was extremely rushed?
This episode was rushed.
Yeah. I agree. I expected when I fired it up to be like an hour and a half finale, just getting that extra like Game of Thrones type of time. And then I saw that it was like 60 minutes exactly. And I was like, oh, I don't know if they could wrap it up in that amount of time. So I agree with you, David, for sure.
Yeah, because we didn't get to learn the process of them learning how to speak from the book of pretty much of tongues. They picked it up really quick and they just shot to Letty and the grandma, kind of her teaching her about this, and we just, all right, now we're ready to do to take on this to take on Christina, basically. Okay, so and that's what it becomes, and then we see that Diana fully forms except for her arm, which I thought was extremely weird. And then it left off on probably one of the worst futuristic cliffhangers I've ever seen. I don't watch a lot of TV, but
wait, the arm not being restored. That was the setup. That was the Pavlov's gun of the episode.
Did you guys love that or hate that?
I hated it.
The arm,
the robot child.
The robot arm.
I just laughed at that. I'm like, okay, so that kind of told me exactly what the show was kind of before. I'm like, okay, so this is what you were building up to. This little girl with a fucking robot arm strangling Christina while the Skugin howls at the moon. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, great. So the show is not interested in saying anything at all. That's what that finale was telling me. So
that's a pretty angry image, right? You have someone helplessly
is anger.
Yeah, you have someone helplessly buried under some rocks, and then you use a robot arm to just smash her larynx. That's pretty drastic. There's putting people out of their misery, and then there's that.
The boys called it one gore effect back.
Yeah, it was. It was a little. I mean, it alluded to of course now Hippolyta can jump in and out of space whenever she freaking wants, and I think all this non-explanation of events that happened really got me almost angry because now things are just happening to happen. Don't question how they happen; they just happen, and I hate when a show does that.
Oh man, sorry to interrupt, but I just came up with an insane, amazing pitch for season 2 that might actually save the future of the show. Ready for it? And it'll suck because Atticus won't be there, so they'll need to find like a new lead. Maybe they can make like his and Letty's son like the main character. Since Hippolyta could like have them travel through space in like different dimensions, just make them like the new Jetsons, but like live action.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like a Sarah Connor Chronicles route with it.
No, don't do anything serious.
Okay.
Hippolyta got the blue hair, so she could be the Jetson.
Or like a Lost in Space or something like that. Just do that. That's an easy way to create longevity.
I mean, the fact that like we can even hypothesize about the future of the show in this regard just speaks to the absurdity of that finale. I mean,
I hope you know that wasn't serious. So.
Oh yeah, no, I know, but I think that speaks to like what we got there in that last scene. I mean, the fact that just why, I mean, it wasn't like. It was a finale that lived up to at least what we had gotten in the past, like 5 to 6 weeks. A declining show, but it wasn't like extra bad. But then they come out and they do that, and I'm just like, I don't know how you come back from this.
Final nail in the coffin is what it is.
I feel like there was a lot of kind of underlying issues or just like kind of cryptic, not even cryptic messages, but thrown in there. With the it wasn't with his mother when Atticus kind of had that kind of fell into this time loop or whatever, where he got to see the manor kind of collapse. Was that his like great grandmother or something like that, or the fire?
I
don't remember.
At the beginning. It's right at the beginning. Yeah, well, that's
disappointing because they told us like 3 times, and I still don't remember who she is.
Well, she was around with the fire, right? And we found out she slept with this other guy, who that's what created the bloodline, right? And then she said that I was running away from the fire so much that I learned to just control it. That it was part of me. It would always follow me. So I was trying to figure out in the second time watching that, like, what is this hidden meaning with the fire supposed to be like? That they have the fire deep inside them, like that always, or like I'm
fire
really
rises.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Wasn't there a line of dialogue where she said it was like my rage, it basically personified into reality? There was a lot. I feel like there was a lot of on the nose dialogue in this this episode as well. Specifically when Christina was like they took the magic from her, and it was pretty much like it's no longer your communities, it's our communities.
Yeah.
So did I miss the message? Like is
That was
science
pretty
fiction
blatant.
and horror basically now, like whites can't write that, like, but where, like, I don't know where the actual like metaphor beyond the show goes.
To me,
in terms of magic,
there isn't
okay,
one.
sure.
That's why it can't go anywhere.
Oh yeah, I guess I'm reading too much into it, but yeah, it was on the nose, and I think that's that's really a hard sell when everything is like, yo, Ruby's dead, oh, now we have the magic, and there's so many of these on the nose lines in this episode that I guess this goes to the time crunch, right? You have to just kind of say it in dialogue and get through the episode, and I don't know. I just feel like there might have not been a reason to have that rage personified, and maybe it was just sort of filling in time. Like, did they waste time during this episode too? Like I wonder if they weren't as economic as they could have been in terms of the plot.
Can I actually, real quick, can I just pitch an alternate version of that ending scene that might actually solve everything? So here's the thing. I'm not actually changing that much. Like, the setup is pretty much the same. It's Christina trapped under the boulders. Dee walks up with she reveals the robot arm. And then the Skogan walked up behind her. And I'm like, okay, perfect opportunity and throwback to how the first episode ended. Have the Skogan, like, bite her, but not, like, eat her. And then just have her turn into one. Like, easy fix, and like already kind of a cooler and better version of that scene. But no, she has to like crush her larynx with the robot hand. It's like,
I wasn't expecting that.
I just don't know why we even needed the robot hand. I mean,
like,
I
what
understand
purpose
robot
did
hand.
that serve? I don't get it.
I wanted to see maybe if I can get deep for a second and really try to understand this, because I know there's a lot of stuff going on that's kind of we're kind of goofing at, but I think the missed opportunity with the HEMA, the whole thing was that it started with her and her people, that it was stolen from Titus, and just like along the way. So we're talking about stolen land, which obviously translates to actual historical things,
That's the
right?
story of America is stolen land.
So we're talking about the correlation between all this modern stuff and then actual history and jumping back and forth. So they're trying to correlate that, I think, with the Yahima story. Then we get this Titus story. And then we get the story of, the grandmother, great grandmother, so then that kind of dilutes the bloodline, which includes him in it. And then that's why they say, we're taking it back type of thing. But it could correlate to something in present day, whatever the meaning Misha Green's trying to put out there with taking back. And she even says, I'm not putting a bound on you. I'm putting a bound on all white people. And that's the dialogue that kind of sucked me out, because I'm like, okay, this is super woke now. And you didn't just kind of leave it up to my imagination. You had to tell me that, And that's the part I kind of didn't appreciate.
Yeah,
a lot of telling, not a whole lot of visual imagery.
No.
Yeah.
It's a lot
Q, dude, where's your head been at the last few minutes? What we've been saying?
I'm just trying to catch up with all this stuff David was saying, because I don't know. This bloodline coming back up to the future, and then they literally tell us. I didn't get any of that. I was confused, to be honest with you. Maybe my brain is small or something, but it was so much magic and weird stuff in this robot Mortal Kombat hands, and it's and then there's a lady with foxtails coming out of eyes with lightning, and Thor coming down, and Atticus it just.
It made a lot of sense that they revealed that it was like a superhero crossover at some point.
Yeah, I can't get that deep with it because I wasn't keeping up. I didn't care. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about Monstros. Like you say, I don't even like Monstros. He's just like an asshole. And then Jonathan Majors was crying so much, I can't even hardly hear his dialogue. He's always crying over whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Oh, your birthday eggs.
I have a question.
Like birthday eggs.
Q, real quick. I have a question. Is Jonathan Majors the successor to Tobey Maguire from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies?
the successor of Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies?
The successor of Peter Parker for like biggest little bitch in a movie as far as how much he cries.
Yeah, he might got to crying. Yeah, every episode. The dude
I mean, it's
is
between
dying.
him and Montrose. It's between him and Montrose as far as that stance goes. But Montrose is saving the fact that he's Michael K. Williams, who's still got a little bit of that Omar and Chucky like good grace left over.
I love Jonathan Majors. Don't get me wrong, but man, he was slobbing. I'm like, there's slob coming out every scene. I don't even know why he's crying sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Like he went
when
for
he
it.
had sex. When he had sex, you know,
went
he
for it.
orgasmed the first time. Like,
right?
Oh.
And you're like, dude, you're having sex with Journey Smollett Bell. Now is not the time to be fucking crying.
Yeah,
that was
real.
time for celebration.
Well, you know, I kind of, even though we are getting silly, I think we're kind of riffing off of what we were given, first of all. So it's kind of hard to take all this seriously, even if she is trying to say some crazy prolific statement there with, you know, that interaction between, you know, oh my God, the names are escaping me right now, but Robot Arm and the white girl, you know, and it's just like
Robot Arm and the white girl.
That
needs to be a show.
Is that the spinoff of the show?
No, that needs to be a show. Look at a spinoff. Robot Hand and the white girl.
Is that a CW show?
Lovecraft Country's over with. Bring me Robot Hand and the white girl. That's an amazing name for a porno right there.
God, oh my God!
Chris, you stumbled right into that one.
The R rating on this, but I mean, I could not take it seriously.
We didn't even get into
it. Was lost on me.
We didn't even get into the first battle too when they made that circle and they brought the guy in. Character.
They brought back Titus. What? Just to kill? Did they even Kalima him or no? They just cut off like a piece of his chest and like let out his heart. I'm like, bro, if you're gonna Kalima someone, go all the way.
Well, that was. I think he cut the piece of flesh off and then he ate it at the end, right?
Yeah, he wanted himself some Titus jerky.
Yeah, and I was like, is that part of the ritual? Like, none of this is explained. Like, it's just, and then he had to drink the the blood or whatever. It's like
he needed the body of Titus and the body of Christina, which I didn't understand why. Like, I was just going with it when I was watching it. Yeah. So. I think that's part of the magic, right? It's like, oh, this book, it just tells me to do it. And then you're able to do some crazy stuff where it's like, we got to conjure this ghost from the past. We then got to slice a thing from his chest. He was able to jump magically into the street and just shout some racial slurs for a little bit and then come back. Like I
thought he was in a circle. I thought he was in a circle that was like. I mean,
wasn't that just the purpose of like every white character on the show that wasn't Christina to just like shout racial slurs?
Listen, you're dead. You're dead.
Oh, I see.
For 100 years.
You went the extra mile to get it done. That is a fact.
Yeah, you're dead for 100 years, and the first thing you're doing is bringing up racial epithets. Like come on, like do something better than that.
Yeah, you don't have
to be a little bit productive.
You don't have a will that was like withstanding or something,
right?
Jeez, man.
And then I love how
explain anything. Like
I love how this creator tried to pull a Rian Johnson and thought that she was smarter than she really was. Where the ending is like, okay, I'm gonna have the character walk into certain fate, a certain doom, knowing full well that the character's gonna try and get him out. But instead of doing the getting him out at the last minute, and instead of doing something cool and alternative, we're just gonna kill him, and that's gonna be it. And it's gonna be super sad. And the problem was everyone forgot about it like 5 minutes later. Because literally my only thought when they were carrying the was that a tumor? Like just carrying him on the bench. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting. His eyes are going to blink open any minute now. And then it cuts to black. I'm like, well, thank God that's over with.
Yeah.
And then it came back.
Way better
and then it came back for Robot Hand and the white girl.
It did. Yeah. It was like the end credit scene in a Marvel film.
Yeah. I will say that the slashes on Atticus's wrists and arms, those were more graphic than I expected.
Those were deep.
I definitely was like, wait, they just killed him because there's absolutely visually there was absolutely no way he was coming back. Although in this world, right, we have Ghost and ways of conjuring people back, so you could easily just in the context of the magic bring him back. Maybe not in the full human form, but in, some sort of form. All you need is Molten Salt. And I think that's the real winner of this finale is the product placement of Molten Salt, because I saw that, like, that's all I remember from the episode, was that blue and white box and then pouring it all over the place.
Oh man, great product placement there.
Yeah, I wonder if they financed the whole show.
Salt. It's the saltiest.
Isn't that a huge part of like horror lore though? They're always doing
there's
the
always
salt.
and like witchcraft are always making circles of salt. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is so magical about salt?
But they never work, like in that one SpongeBob episode where they like draw like the circle.
That's not a circle. That's an oval.
Yeah, but I mean, damn guys. So, all right, listen. I have a few points to bring up that aren't about the finale and the subject matter of the finale. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to chime in about the subject matter of the finale, or are we ready to hit like another?
Ghosts go. They're also super inconsistent about that. Well, because if certain characters can come back as ghosts, why the fuck did Courtney B. Vance not come back as a ghost? I mean, that's already like one of my biggest problems with the show is that it killed off its best character in the second episode, which was like a crime against humanity. Because first of all, a show with Courtney B. Vance and Michael K. Williams as supporting characters is already 1,000 times more interesting than anything happening in this show, which is a problem. And then we got like flashbacks with them as kids when they were younger. And also, I fucking hate how this show cheated us of the Cthulhu reveal. Because when they did the hallucination in the opening scene, which is like one of just like top 5 greatest opening scenes I've ever seen.
That was cool.
And then it ends and Montrose is like, oh, we were saved by somebody who was swinging a bat like Jackie Robinson. I'm like, really? That's what you're going to use to resolve that opening scene? And they totally did. I'm like, at that moment, we had one more episode to go, but I was already like, fuck this. Like, this is bullshit.
So Dom, to that, I have a question for you for that.
Okay.
So now that we know that the mysterious figure was actually Atticus that saved him, right? That means that he went
time loop stuff.
He went back to the future style, right? Yep. So, in that sense, how come Hippolyta couldn't go back and save George? I mean, she went back to where they were in bed still, and then she just jumped forward to be back. She could have stayed in that time.
Because
he stayed alive.
Because don't you remember? It's because apparently George, despite being like the nicest and most decent human being there, is like, he held me back and held me from being who I truly am. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
I think she was a little vengeful.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, that's my go-to on that.
Yeah.
What's up, Q?
George was the best character. I think George was one of the most wholesome and best characters. Like the beginning scene, you see them in the bed and like, I just want to kiss my wife. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? That's love. Like, well, how is she, how did he hold her back? You know what I'm saying? I think it's just some BS story. I think it's just bad writing, man. George was that guy, man. I felt sadder when George died than Atticus. Like when George died, like, oh, man.
You have to sit through 8 episodes of Atticus just crying nonstop.
Exactly.
What I will say about George is that I feel like if George stayed alive, he would have made Montrose a better character because the two of them really play off of each other, really well in those first episodes. And also you get a lot more of their relationship in the book. It's like read the book, I guess is my mantra. But to go to the point of like George holding her back, that's a story point that we don't really get in the show. Hippolyta wanted to be sort of an astronomer, and there's this whole 20-30 pages in the book focused on like what she wants to do in life that society held her back from, and we don't get to see that in the TV show. We just have to assume that it's a given that she unfortunately is an older Black woman and she didn't get to do what she did because of society. And it's like, it goes to the point, like, show us, don't just sort of leave it up to our imagination. Like, I get that, but like the whole idea that she had this desire to be an astronomer, to name planets, but she was always sort of reading the newspapers and finding like a white girl who was naming planets. That's like very valuable story stuff. And it's sort of just like glossed over in this story. And, I can understand where it's like getting a husband and having a family and that holding you back from that ambition. But in the context of the show, we don't see any of that. So it's sort of just a line that's thrown in there, and it doesn't really stick. I think you're right about that, Q. It just doesn't quite stick in the context of the show.
Yeah, she just goes to the future with Josephine Baker all of a sudden. Like, why? You know what I'm saying? Then she, like outer space, like she obviously trying to be somebody, but they never showed us a reason, or George saying something to her like, you can't be no astronomer, you silly girl. We never, you know what I'm saying? Just give us a little thing that say like she's being held back by society or anything. It was just her, and then she go to her dimension. Now she's fighting Amazon and Wonder Woman with
where she literally is named after Wonder Woman's mom, so therefore naturally she is now Hippolyta, Queen of the Amazons. I'm like, okay, is this show trying to poke fun at the DC stuff? Like, I've been making a lot of jokes throughout this episode, but like some of the references were a little bit too obvious for even me.
No, I don't think they were trying. I just think it was sloppy, man, to be honest with you.
I was going to say, still, all that being said, she could have still gone back in time, even not to that moment. Now that she's the time travel guru, apparently at any point in time, she's talking about like, oh, how did you become a good artist? Oh, I spent 100 years, or I spent, time with this woman that taught me how to. Okay. So you literally can do anything now. I mean, you went into the future and got an arm for your daughter. So why couldn't you go back maybe 10 years or whenever you met George? Establish that you want to be the woman that you want to be, still have a family or whatever, or if not, maybe, and then start from there.
Because David, this show is not concerned with actual story and setup and plot and actual stakes. The show is concerned with just shock value moments and random nonsense and inherent anger and just showing off cool effects and violence. And
how far in the future, by the way, do you think she went to get that arm? Because that looked like a 1981 Terminator.
No
arm.
idea.
That did not look.
She
like
literally came back.
No idea.
Bro, I was expecting I was honestly hoping they were gonna pan up and we'd see like half of Dinah's face and then the other, like the T whatever underneath it. Like
better production value on that arm.
The show just completely cheaped out on its budget at the end too, where it's like they got to the room and you just showed a reaction at the door. I'm like, wow, they did not have the money at all to shoot like a green screen room with like all the techno shit that she pulled back from the future.
Okay, we're gonna ask the professional animator right now. Q.
Yes.
I thought, and please, if I'm wrong. First off, I want to know what you thought about everything, but just this one specific thing. When Jonathan Majors is in that hallway and he's speaking to whoever that woman was, she looked younger than him, and it was like that red flame around her. That felt like a pack you buy offline and drag and drop, right? I mean, am I wrong?
The colors was off. I thought the colors were turned way up. Somebody turned that color curve up, like woo. You know what I'm saying? And then she had that fire in her hand too. That just was so early Harry Potter days. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a bad
Sorcerer's Stone Harry Potter era.
Yeah. This is HBO, man. They got good compers there. You know what I'm saying? They can do good composition with the backdrop, and I can see the glow around her. And that type of stuff really bothers me. You know, I know I be pixel peeping like that. So when I see stuff like that, like, come on, man. I mean, it was so good. Like I thought Watchmen. I hate to keep bringing up Watchmen. I thought the effects in that were just on point. I mean, that shit looks gorgeous, you know what I'm saying, all the time. And it was hit and miss sometimes. Like I said, some effects look really good mixed with the practical and the CG, and but sometimes they're just blatantly obvious. It's like that deer in Walking Dead. If you guys ever seen that deer that was just floating in the grass, it kind of reminded
I remember that deer.
Yeah. And just bad comping special effects. I wish it could have been better. The CG monsters of the
Skoogans.
The Skoogans. I thought they looked decent sometimes. Sometimes I thought they looked a little too CG. When they were close in camera, they looked all right. But like sometimes when they were out and moving, it was a little off to me. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I just think when it's close up, the worst special effect I hate in the show when that damn ghost came out of the ground like a bad PS2 video game. I was out. I
just want to like throw another monkey wrench at the show's own logic. For a show that preaches itself on diversity, what about diversity of monsters? How come we only saw the Skoogans, like we and ghosts, and that was it? Like,
okay. So
correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the whole thing about Lovecraft that he's got like a variety of monsters, and like this is the guy who invented Cthulhu? Like, I feel like we should be like seeing fairies and like all sorts like shapeshifters and like water demons and like all sorts of crazy shit, and that's all we get. I'm like, really? Like,
So
come on.
So real quick, because you're totally right, Dom. You're tapping into the last point that I had written down here that I wanted to get in with everyone. But Q, before we jump off the animation thing, because I do feel we're pretty fortunate to have you here. You know, someone who literally like does this for a living. Like overall, like if you had to rate it off the top of your head, like out of 5, how would you say the CG was? Because usually I never notice HBO CG because it's usually pretty good, and I'm not thinking about the quality of it. But this show I did. But that could just be my untrained eyes. You know.
So yeah, you said about 1 out of 5. I'm giving about a 3.8. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it was really, really good, and just sometimes it was just off. And I got to take a couple of points almost away from just when it's like super off. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, it was pretty good. Like I said, that transformation in the alley was amazing. I don't even know how they did that at all. You know, like how do they do that? You know, turn the camera around and cut it. And the scene in the the Indiana Jones when the lady transformed back from the corpse into the for the human form, they didn't cut. I mean, you know, they did a 1917 thing. They cut, of course, but how they did it, and you seen it live in camera, and she come to life. I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was done very, very, very well. But you know, but you got the ghost coming out of the ground. It just don't look right. Or Atticus's great grandmother. That the comp is off and the colors are off. So yeah. It was a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Mixed bag. Yeah, 3.8. Yeah.
Speaking of 3.8, I mean, like out of all the lore that Lovecraft has to offer, we saw none of it. I mean, I feel like they really just now that we've seen 10 episodes, you know, personally, it seems to me like they really used Lovecraft for two things. One, to put butts in seats, you know, to get people to tune in each week because he does have such a rich lore and a rich history. And obviously Cthulhu is a classic monster, and what he was able to do with Antarctica and the aliens is something that I've seen people try and, touch upon time and time again, and not just from film and TV. You know, you got video games, you got comic books, a bunch of different mediums that are inspired by or take Lovecraft's works. So that's like, you know, to put butts in seats. But I also feel like because, you know, Lovecraft, as brilliant and creative as he was, it's well noted that he was, a racist person. And so I feel like to kind of use him to like take his work and flip the script on him, I feel like he was more of like a ploy than really an inspiration or even a part of this show. But what do you guys think about all that? Because all I saw was really the Skoogans. I can't name any other freaking monster that I've seen like long enough on screen in this show to.
What are little eyes?
The foxtails, but I don't even know if that's is that a Lovecraft?
Yeah, that seemed like well. First off, I thought I'm like, okay, now this is ripping off Naruto with the 9-tailed fox team and everything. They literally had the same name, and I'm like, okay. But yeah, no, you're right. I was like, okay, but they literally had like nothing else. They clearly were that was just a part of Lovecraft. They were only interested in exploring like the supernatural elements without like the more monster centric elements. But correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Lovecraft always geared more towards the monsters than and the supernatural was like the secondary effect of it? Like, am I wrong there? Or
well, no, he had Cthulhu and
I was that like Cthulhu was like a creature that like brought like supernatural things with it. Like I'm actually, as many times I've seen it in pop culture, I'm not actually familiar with what it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Cool.
no, I mean, Lovecraft came up with the fish people, which were a big thing. He, he did a lot with like aliens and whatnot, and like we really saw none of that stuff.
He didn't do the Thing novella, did he?
That I don't know. I wouldn't be able to speak to that.
Thing
right
from
now.
Outer Space. Okay, I wasn't sure.
He also did Reanimator, right? Lovecraft.
Yeah, he did.
Reanimator?
I think
that was him.
exactly. We
That
saw
was him.
no touches
So-
of any of that type of stuff in this.
Wait. Well, wasn't that the episode technically where Letty buys a house and it's in the basement? Because those were people that were butchered up and put back together. That's part of Reanimate. If you guys have seen the 80s, well, I've seen the 80s one. I know they have one before that. But that's kind of what the scientists did, is put kind of Frankenstein people together. And that's what they were. That's the only thing I can kind of put two and two together of what that could have been, the Reanimator.
I can give you that. It feels a little loose, though, to me personally. But I mean, how did you guys feel about Lovecraft's attachment to the show and use or lack thereof use of his lore in the series?
I'm pissed off because again, if it would have made for more of a better show, then yeah, I'm gonna take anything that would have made this a better show, like, and use that as a point against the show that we have.
That comment raises a good point.
No, right? Yeah, and episode
seven was the Korean episode, right?
No, 7 was the aliens episode with Hippolyta. 6 was the Korean episode.
Oh, okay.
And then when you got that, they even somehow managed to find a way to fuck up the alien thing.
Yeah, and we had talked about that. It's like, why every time they show futuristic aliens, it's always humanoid? Like, can they just focus on something that's not a humanoid
Because
alien?
actually putting work into creating something not humanoid takes effort, David. And
I mean, I guess they
HBO
did-
doesn't feel like doing that.
To go back to the robot arm, I guess they did have those Terminator looking type guys that were standing at the gates before Hippolyta went into the portal. When she was like offered the opportunity to stay, you know, after that whole dream sequence, she stepped into the portal, like they ushered her in, if you remember. And so maybe
don't
there's
remember that one.
something that connects there. It was for a second. I remember saying it on our episode, David. I was like, yeah, there was like some Terminator guys there for a second. For a
I
hot
mean,
second.
unless you're talking about the alien woman's afro, because oh man, that made Undercover Brothers afro look tiny by comparison.
That was crazy.
Oh man, I just had to point that out. I'm like, that was the only thing I noticed. I'm like, I'm not looking at anything else on her.
We had talked about that a lot on that podcast episode.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know exactly what they're doing here, and it's just that's just hilarious to me. I'm like, that's all I'm going to be talking about for like the next couple weeks.
Man, I mean, I don't know. I feel
Sorry
like
to
they
keep
had
bursting
such an
your bubble, Chris,
opportunity.
but like, I can't take this seriously. Like,
No,
not
that's
that-
fine, man. If we can't, we can't. I mean, I think it speaks to the way the show went, but I just feel like they had such an opportunity to tap in because honestly, you know, a Lovecraft, people have highlighted specific sections of his work, but to be able to have a property where you can literally pull anything he's done out of the hat is such a gold mine if you think about it, that they just didn't tap into. The show finished in October. We're 2 weeks out from Halloween, if not even sooner, and it's just like, man, I think they really missed another opportunity with all that.
Yeah.
I think they just dropped the ball on some episodes. I think Misha Green being green, I think
Nice wordplay.
She wasn't able to bring some of this special mythology that Lovecraft had out, even though coming off the book, like Pat said, keep reading the book. I bet it's more focused towards certain things to create better storytelling. I just think Misha Green with her Rick Ross music, I gotta admit, I did like the Cardi B Bloody Shoes for some reason. I don't know, that made me smile with the I don't know, that made me smile.
Anything Cardi B now just kind of makes me chuckle, but not for the right reasons.
yeah. So like, I don't hate the show at all. I don't hate it. I don't see myself maybe rewatching it multiple times. So I think I was let down at the end. So that's where you hear this frustration coming out, because I expected so much of it. Like like even from Jordan Peele, Get Out to Us. I really dig Us, but my expectations were still so high from Get Out. Some people like Us better. I didn't know where it was until I started rewatching it, and I like Get Out's a better movie. So I had high expectations coming from HBO and Jordan Peele, and I just expected this to all come together. I thought every week it was going to be like Tales from the Crypt or Creep Show, even if it was an anthology, just to keep me coming back every week. But it turned out I was just like, well, hopefully next week is better. And sometimes it is, but then it's like, and then like towards the end, I was just like, a white girl in a robot arm. I was like,
No.
Yeah, dude.
Robot arm and the white girl.
I mean, David, unless you have anything else to add, I feel like Q just kind of took us there. I feel like it may be like closing thought times, right?
He took the words right out of my mouth. There was like, I had high hopes for this show. It didn't meet my expectations, but there was pieces from each episode that I did enjoy. And I guess that's what kept me. And I'm like, hey, I'm already halfway through the season. Why not? And then we had talked about this. I mean, like a couple episodes ago, we're like, man, they better start picking up steam for this finale, which they didn't. And they let us down. And that's what kind of, and like Pat said, I think, I forget who said it earlier on, where they were kind of carrying Atticus out, and hopefully he comes back, and somehow they use some kind of spell to bring him back. That's the only other tie-in I could see for season 2, is that he's not really dead, because magic, they can just use magic for whatever, or jump through time once again. I don't know. I think they're using it as such a cheap, easy go-to that I'm like totally invested. I already said it like online. I'm like, I'm not watching the season 2 if they do come out with one.
So real quick,
Damn,
David, would you
okay.
say that you had high hopes for a living, didn't have a dime, but you always had a vision?
What?
Are you kidding me? You don't know that song?
No.
Terrible.
But
Panic
Panic at the Disco?
song.
Oh, man. That whole
Sorry.
song's terrible, but you said high
No,
hopes.
no, no.
Wow.
You don't have to be sorry. That is a very
No,
old
that's
reference.
a terrible. Yeah, that's a terrible
That
song. You
song
don't
is
have to.
outdated now. That song
I-
is subjected to like Allstate commercials now,
yeah,
dude.
it's
It is
like in
not on the
every
radio
trailer
anymore.
ever. It's terrible, but yeah.
Woo! Right over my head, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Wow.
But I mean, either way,
That's
I'm not
me.
seeing season 2.
I was about to say, God heaven forbid I ever try to make a song reference ever again.
Yeah, man.
That's
Stay
what I
in your
get.
lane. You know, I feel like everyone. I feel like the moral of tonight's episode is stay in your lane.
Yeah,
And
to say the least.
that was hilarious.
I like
Dom,
ambition.
I'm glad that I was able to bring
Did you
some
like the
smiles to some
ambition?
people's faces.
I like
Unlike this
ambition.
show.
I love Christopher Nolan, but I had no idea what Tenet is about. Call me
Hey,
crazy.
hey, man!
I
As the
don't know.
movie itself said, don't think. You don't try to understand it. Just feel it.
Jeez.
I don't know.
I'm like, Jesus, this really is the machine gaining sentence.
Patrick
Yeah.
W. Huber, man, what are your sort of closing thoughts on the show here as we make our exit?
You know, I think, you know, all of us have been talking this whole entire time about just like the energy just for this finale just being, you know, sucked out of us. Like we were thrown and slammed to the ground and we just sort of tapped out. I will say that generally I did like the show. You know, like I said, the production value is there. The acting is there. Like, you know, it is a creative 10 episodes of TV. So I don't want people left with this episode like it's, you know, totally not worth exploring at all. I just think it comes with, you know, come with a critical mind, be expecting to find things that you love, things that you hate. And then, you know, hopefully just, you know, maybe you fall asleep during the ending and you don't really go back and watch it again. You know, it's like I've watched plenty of movies where I've fallen asleep and woken up for the last 5 minutes and just, that's it. I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
Don't have to,
Yeah,
you
fair
know,
enough.
so if you fall asleep at any point, don't go back and watch it. Just keep going forward. But it is
Yeah,
worth
and you
watching for certain aspects of the show. So I will say that.
Totally, man. And as Jay references Dom on the in the comment section, I think we'll turn it over to the man
Question.
himself.
What
the movie
was
nerd.
more of the epic fail, though? That joke or that finale? Oh, wait. They're both because
Oh.
that finale was a joke. Because, yeah, I mean, I think I stated all of my points that I wanted to. But, yeah, this show, as Q amazingly stated before, showed just how green Misha Green really is. And yeah, it's a very amateurish show, and it shows in every single frame. Well shot, well composed, great batch of actors, all of them horrifically wasted in just thankless parts. It's a show that is trying to be relevant rather than focus on story, and it shows. And it somehow killed off any anticipation that I have for future seasons before the first season even had a chance to finish. So as far as that goes, yeah, that's not the sign of a show that I'm looking forward to. And as far as your point before, David, as far as them just calling this a miniseries, yeah, I'm hesitant to agree because I have a feeling that if this does go for miniseries as far as the Emmys are concerned next year, it's not going to have a lot of competition. So it'll probably sweep as far as that goes because it's got the diversity. It's got the diversity edge to it, so it can probably sweep if they market it right and just keep it on everyone's minds, which is tragic to think about because there's nothing to me about this show that deserves any form of Emmys unless it's for the actors. But yeah, this show was like I said, it's big waste of time. I want the last 10 weeks of my life back, and I'll give this show. I don't know if we're doing star ratings or anything, but I'll give this show 2 out of 5 stars. I'll give it the 2 for extra. You know what? Actually, no, that's too nice. 1.5 out of 5 stars for the overall show.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna have everyone go back around and just like give quick star ratings, but there we go. Dom with a 1.5 out of 5. Guys, you know, listen, I think that there's a lot of things about the show that were good, and you know, like I said, the history that I had not known of because, you know, the education system just doesn't get, you know, deep enough in certain things, and the actors I thought were really good until they weren't. Unfortunately, like I was really with Atticus and Letty and Montrose until about episode 8. they were keeping me going through all the missed opportunities, through all the unanswered questions, but it all just got to be a little too much. And as someone who's no stranger to the J.J. Abrams touch, I just have to learn. I can't accept these things any longer, so the bad severely outweighs the good. And so while there was a few good things, like I said, I mean, we weren't really that positive in this podcast, right? And with that being said, I think I'm gonna have to give it a 2 out of 5. So yeah, that's that. David, I forget. Did you give your conclusion? You did, right?
Yeah, just not a star rating or anything.
Oh yeah. Let's David, Q, and Pat, give your star ratings in that order.
Sure, man. And it's interesting because we had talked about every week too, and I agree with that comment they just left. This is why finales are so important to get right. If you look on IMDb, these ratings for each episode are extremely high, but are those for certain reasons and certain tie-ins with what's happening with the social commentary?
Yeah,
I think yes, definitely. But that is not a reason why a show should be good. And I try to separate. I try to get sucked into this and then just put myself in that. I don't really try to tie in what's going on. And I think people are striking when the iron's hot. We always talk about, dude, look at Borat 2 coming out and it's talking about the elections and it's hitting a week before November 4th or November 3rd. So it's like, I understand why studios do what they do. And I think this is one of those times where we're getting a show like this hitting at a certain time. I'm not saying that was their initial intention, but I could have done with more monsters. All that being said, I had an okay time. The last couple of episodes were letdowns for me, and it lost steam. So I'm going to say a 3 out of 5 because I was entertained for the most part watching these episodes.
Feel that, Q, man. What's your star rating out of 5?
Man, I had so much high hopes for the show. I mean, I was riding. Like I said, I was riding, man. I love the mythology. I love where they could take it. I love the ambition that they were going to try with it. I was even down for an anthology every week. I was even going to deal with the Rick Ross and Cardi B music. You know what I'm saying? I love the special effects sometimes, I was like, oh, that Sundown Town just blew me away. I was like, this is why I pay for HBO and HBO Max to watch this type of great entertainment television. I thought that they were going to carry that on through the rest of the series. But what ended up happening is it was like I said, bird shit, and it was everywhere, and I couldn't keep up. I was confused. I wasn't really with the characters anymore. After Uncle George died, I think that's when kind of the show died to me, and that's very disappointing. But it's not the most horrible thing show I ever seen. I enjoy Lovecraft Country more than I'm enjoying Bride Manor, the Honey of Bly Manor right now.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
I'm bored to death of Bride Manor, but at least I was entertained somewhat in Lovecraft Country. I love some episodes, especially one in the transformation one. I just really dug that because I haven't seen that, even though it's biting off of other material kind of a little bit, but I still really dug that. I thought that was a really creative way to tell a story. So it has some great ways to tell stories, but if I'm going to rate the show overall, I think it's towards the end there, it just got everywhere and just kind of just left me. I don't know. I'm checking my phone just like you guys in fantasy football. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 like Dave. Yeah, it was all right, but it just didn't carry it home for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, the professor of film and technology, Patrick W. Huber himself. What's your score out of 5, man?
I basically been thinking this whole time. Same lines as David and Q here. Basically, I enjoyed watching the show up until the point I didn't. And I was so far invested in this thing that I just stuck with it to the end. And so I think, prior to that episode in Korea, like I might have given this, pretty high rating, something, in the 4 to 5 range. But after that Korea episode and the last couple episodes, I think I'm settling around the 3 point as well, just because I did enjoy the first half of the season. And then I think the problematic part was the second half of the season. And I think that drags down my enthusiasm for the show. But overall, I don't necessarily think it's a bad piece of television. It's 10 episodes that are watchable. And I just think that, the problems sort of are exasperated towards the end of the season. I don't think there should be a season 2, but you know, if the numbers suggest that there should be a season 2, I would not be surprised to see one. And I'm curious what a season 2 would be like, even though I'm personally not really vested like David is in watching a season 2. I guess I might, you know, put my feet in the pool and see what the temperature's like. But for the most part, I'm not looking forward to a season 2.
Yeah, man, I hear you, and we're gonna end this here with this sentiment from Dr. Lee 2 in the chat. This is why finales are so important to get right. It's the last thing people remember until the next season, and these writers could not stick the landing. Guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. David, it's been a pleasure co-hosting, co-streaming this series with you throughout the entirety of it. Thanks for joining me and, you know, allowing me not to have to embarrass myself going solo. This is really, I appreciate it a lot. This was a fun time. And so before we get out of here, we're gonna throw it to the guest first. So sorry, David, since technically you are a co-host, we're gonna throw it to Q real quick. Q, man, let people know where they can find you and you know what you have coming up on your channel in the next few weeks before we get out of here.
Oh yeah. You can catch me right there at Q Reviews with an S. Yeah. My camera's broke, but it's somehow in focus right now. I don't pull focus, but I guess I'm in focus if you can see me. So I'll probably just be doing some talking head videos like this once you know, I get back. My whole basement flooded today, so my basement looks like Lovecraft Country in the other room there. So I had that snake. It's where my TV and my whole back cave chill spot. It's like literally The Walking Dead over there. I had to move everything, all my surround sound, all that. So it's like tree rooting and all type of stuff over there. So I'll be getting back to reviews here real soon. So don't worry. Just check me out at Q Reviews. I love the energy in here tonight. I just got to say, all you guys were wonderful. All you guys had great points, great speaking points. It was an honor for me to just sit here and talk about Lovecraft Country or anything with you guys. You guys are very smart. So thank you so much for having me on your show. And hopefully I see you guys next time. Thanks.
For sure, man. Yeah,
Thanks,
dude, you're always welcome around here, man. Thank you for joining us. Patrick W. Huber, professor of film and technology. Do you have anything you want to leave the people with here today?
Yeah, I'll just say at Patrick W. Huber on Instagram. You know, I post every once in a while, I swear. But I'm basically just you know, teaching, making sure that people get into visual effects, get into post-production, you know, start making movies, creating their own content. You know, when I have free time, I basically am going out there, taking photographs and throwing it on Instagram. So this semester is particularly busy, specifically, you know, teaching in the COVID environment, which is a fun and interesting challenge. But, you know, hey, I'm going to do some creative things. I'm going to throw them on Instagram so you catch them out there. And it definitely was a pleasure, you know, to be on the show. Q, thank you for joining us as well. You know, it was fun to throw some ideas off of everybody, including yourself, David. You know, thanks, Dom, and even Christian, just for having me on. You know, it was a fantastic time. So I do appreciate it.
Likewise, man. And you know, same thing to Q. You're always welcome around here. Pat, David, dude, why don't you, you're up, man.
Sure.
You know what to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, everything is always Flix Talk, guys. Spelled with an X, Flix Talk. Make sure to follow me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I post as well all over. Trust me, I have some things coming. You know, I did catch the Trial of the Chicago 7, which I actually did like. But movies really haven't been doing it for me, man. I mean, I did enjoy that movie. So the only ones I know coming up that I'm looking forward to are Borat 2. This Friday, I believe it is. So I'll have a review up for that probably this weekend. And I'm just trying to working out my own live schedule for the channel. Every Wednesday, you guys can find me on Levels of Geek. Well, it's Levels of Horror this month with Alex as my co-host. And on Sundays, I do a movie news wrap-up show, kind of like in this form, you know, go in a couple of hours, just back and forth with Elliot from Movie Files, where we just break down the biggest stories of the last 7 days and give you guys a recap. And yeah, just doing a lot of live shows, a couple of vlogs, and that's it, man. Just talking movies and entertainment news.
Hell yeah, dude. And guys, everyone's links will be in the description below. Please be sure to subscribe or follow, depending on how you are supposed to interface through the tech giants on said platform. Now, Dom,
Yes.
you know what to do, dude.
Yeah. Oh man, I was hoping you weren't gonna stick me with the Well, pawn the plugging bits off on me because this
Bro,
is
you're
your
just
show.
good at it.
But
I mean,
oh, okay, I get it. No, but people, I wanted to plug one big thing before I do my usual social media spiel, which guys should all be familiar with at this point, is that even though Lovecraft Country is over, thank God, the recapping is not over. You guys are gonna get, actually, yeah, between this, you guys are not gonna get a break because next week, not Monday, but the following Friday, so a week from this coming Friday, people, The Mandalorian season 2 is coming back on Disney Plus, and myself and that man up there will be doing week-to-week recaps of each episode, which is frankly what we should have been doing with season 1. But we were just starting up the podcast, and it was enough for us to just watch one episode and do a podcast of it. Now we're doing multiple podcasts back to back, and it still kind of makes me laugh when Chris was like, I don't know if I want to do 2 podcasts back to back. It's really late, and now we do 3 in one night, and it's awesome.
But we love it, man. And let me just say, Q, I see you nodding your head. Pat, David, if you guys want to join us, man,
please do.
Same thing with
I
Lovecraft
totally
Country
forgot
recap.
more. The Mandalorian was coming out until you just said it. I
Bro,
was like,
literally,
yeah, that's right.
Q, literally, I remind my coworkers every single day, and it's a newsflash revelation to them every single day. So I live for that sort of delight. It's been on my calendar for months. We're really looking forward to recapping and reviewing it. We're really looking forward to see where the next stage of Star Wars
Pat
comes
Pat
in.
wants you back.
Yo,
Pat, for our
you
Mandalorian
got a
watch
fan
along.
tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, if you want me for the Mandalorian, I'll come back for it. But I don't promise you I'll watch season 1. I'm just going to jump into season 2.
You don't have to. I guarantee you're not going to have to. I guarantee you.
Dom, I'm really glad you did that, dude.
I know. It was the most. It was my number 1 priority tonight.
This is why I put that on you, Dom.
Okay.
Continue taking it away.
Mandalorian recaps, people. They're going to be Fridays. The time is to be determined, but we will let you guys know of the time starting next week. We still have to figure out our own schedules before we officially figure out the time, but they will be every single Friday, which is the day when the new episodes drop. So so unlike Lovecraft Country where you got to wait an episode, Professor Pat, we may have just found a new Instagram handle. We may have just found a new Pat the Professor Huber. Oh my God, there you go. That's going to be his nickname now. That's his nickname. But yeah, people, it's going to be a lot of fun. We love Star Wars. Star Wars is always good to us. And we're very much looking forward to wrapping this year up, hopefully on a high note, which again is kind of how the year began because we had Clone Wars at the beginning of the year. But people, because Chris is lazy and because he got me on just so he could get me to do this, Facebook and Instagram at Talkin TV or at Talkin TV Podcast. Click the subscribe button, the like button, the bell button, all the buttons. You guys know what to do. I hope Chris has been having fun. I can't really say because I was only on the first episode of this episode, but these episodes have been doing really well. And I'm looking forward to not only the Mandalorian recap, but future recaps that we have going on the channel. Like I said, we always have more stuff planned for us. And I might have a recap of my own in a way, cooking in the books, but it's still too early to tell. So I'm just dropping the vague hint right now.
Yeah, guys, we really appreciate the support. The channel just continues to grow, and we just broke 100 subscribers 2 weeks ago, and it seems like every day I wake up and check, and small increments, but it's happening. And so thank you guys so much, because this quite literally is a labor of love. But hey, we're willing to see where this thing takes us, and it's all because you guys keep coming back. So David, thanks again for co-hosting these with us. It's been helping us get the word out about our channel, and we're truly grateful. And for you guys for joining us, means a lot. And of course, guys, to any of these people's channels, not only ours, subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and most importantly, hit the bell to be notified whenever we all post. We will catch you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here, as this is Shocktober. And if that's all that's being said, guys, go watch Lovecraft Country if you haven't. If not, we'll catch you in the next video. Have a good night, everyone.